You mentioned your word of the year, and I think I've heard that from you before, but I can't remember if I dove into it. So this idea of the word of the year sounds pretty cool. Like for somebody listening, like, hey, I want a word of the year. I've heard of that. Can you explain a little bit more how you came up with a word of the year?
Sure, yeah. So a few years ago, I was working out with Julie Page. She's a trainer in town, and we were just talking about words of the year. And I think at that time I kind of had focused on intention. And then I was part of a small group of business leaders getting together, women in the community, and we looked at that as well. And we just said, okay, let's look each year at what our word of the year is and really be intentional about that word of the year. So last year, my word of the year was stewardship. The year before it was abundance. And this year just really focusing on how can I be diligent in everything that the Lord has put in front of me. So I like to, put a bunch of words out on a piece of paper and kind of look at those. I pray about it, I ponder it, and then I just kind of go with the word that I feel is most reflectant on what God wants for me in this year ahead.
Oh, that's really cool. Like that's
kind of fun.
that could be a great clip later to share. That's perfect. So, okay, I'm going to ask you one more question on the diligence. So, diligence is a hard word that not everybody understands. Could you, it's early in the year, can maybe you give an example of what you feel diligent is? Because it's for me to learn, not for anybody listening, but if you get something out of it, if you're listening, that's great too. So, give me an example.
Yeah, so as I go through the year, I usually try and see if that word is going to be refocused through the year. And for me right now, starting off diligence is how can I be diligent in things that God has put in front of me? So how can I be diligent in serving my husband? How can I be diligent in serving my clients and my friends and my team? How can I be diligent in even just for myself, like working out or eating better, spending time in the Word, and just looking at being proactive, look at being disciplined with different things, and just diligently pursuing what God has for me.
So if you're faced with a situation, or even say you're working with a client, you might think, okay, what would be diligent about handling this situation? You maybe ask the question internally and say, oh, I'm going to make that extra call, or I'm going to send that extra email, or I'm going to do a little bit extra this or that. Is that basically an example of it?
That would be a great example, yes. So just, looking at expectations as well, and being diligent in exceeding expectations up front, being diligent in doing the things that I know I need to do to make my business more productive. And sometimes that's hard. I mean, we're in January, you have these goals that you have set before you. I mean, I write down a whole bunch of goals, and then, as January wears on, we sometimes peter out at those. So I have to I continually go back to my word. My word of the year is diligence. How am I being diligent in pursuing my goals?